everybody. I'm Rishad Salam. This is Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera, your weekly look at the world of business and economics. This week, a boost to free trade or a deal with hidden costs. The EU and 4 Latin American nations have agreed on a sweeping trade pact after 25 years of negotiations. If it finally takes effect, who stands to gain more? Big oil cools on Donald Trump's push to revive Venezuela's oil industry. It worries the numbers don't add up. Is Trump's $100 billion plan too ambitious, or can he turn the nation back into an oil giant? And Trump has his eye on Greenland, another resource-rich territory. So why is the president so keen to acquire it? And can its vast resources really be turned into big profits? Now, it would create one of the largest free trade zones in the world, connecting markets with more than 700 million people. A trade pact between the European Union and the Mercosur trading bloc of 4 Latin American nations. It's been agreed after almost 25 years of talks. Now, this is all despite opposition from farmers in several European countries. It is seen as part of Europe's efforts to curb economic reliance on China, and it comes against this backdrop of President Donald Trump's tariffs on countries around the world and his recent military intervention in Venezuela. But the pact still needs to be approved by the EU Parliament before it can take effect. But will it? Kulsum Sharif reports.
A deal more than 25 years in the making. The European Union has approved a major trade agreement with the South American bloc, creating one of the world's largest free trade areas between the 27-nation EU and Mercosur countries, Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay and Uruguay. Under the agreement, Mercosur will export agricultural products and minerals to Europe. The EU, in turn, will export machinery, chemicals and pharmaceuticals. The pact removes tariffs on more than 90% of products. It's expected to save European businesses nearly $5 billion annually in duties. In 2024, bilateral trade was worth $130 billion in evenly split goods.
It is vital to have access to open markets, and the less the trade barriers are, the less restrictions we face, the more business we can do.
The long-delayed deal comes at a time of global uncertainty, but it's faced major opposition over years of negotiations. France, the EU's largest agricultural producer, Poland and Ireland have opposed the deal. Farmers have been staging massive protests, fearing the cheap South American imports will undercut local production.
It's truly a scandal. We are bringing in products that don't meet the same standards we're required to follow. In Europe, farmers are forced to comply with strict regulations, yet imports are allowed that don't meet those standards.
It's going to close down the whole countryside. Like as it is, we are actually losing farmers. And not only farmers, losing country people, end over end.
In response, the European Commission has pledged an additional $50 billion for the agricultural sector. The concessions were enough to persuade Italy to back the agreement, but not Poland or France.
We're looking at all legal possibilities. It's not an easy process, but we'll be looking for all the methods available to protect consumer health, our market and our producers.
For an agreement that's taken a quarter of a century to finalize, the process is far from over. The deal must be approved by the European Parliament before it comes into force. Kulsum Sharif, Al Jazeera, for Counting the Cost.
Frederick Eriksson is an economist and the director of the European Centre for International Political Economy, and he joins us now from Brussels. Frederick, thank you so much for taking your time out to join us. The fundamental question is this a win-win really?
I think it is. Like most free trade agreements that you do now or that you've done in history, it largely increases trade, it largely increases the number of companies that participates in trade, and it generally leads to more economic growth. But that doesn't mean that everyone stands to benefits. When you reduce protectionism, it of course means that you're going to have more competition coming in as well. But the strange thing is that the more you reduce competition, the greater the economic benefits tend to be as well, which means that in this case now, when especially the Mercosur countries are taking down tariffs quite significantly, they are also the ones that are going to see the greatest benefits on economic growth and on public welfare as a result of it.
So, Frederick, on the one hand, we've got European farmers suggesting that they're the losers and the South American ones are the winners. But then there's a gamut of other industries which you could see in Europe which would be winning here as well.
I mean, if you look just at trade volume, export gains, and what type of import flows that you can expect to come, it is obviously the case that the German automotive sectors, the French automotive sectors, machinery, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, as you said in the report, we're going to find significant export increases from Europe to Mercosur countries as a result of this agreement. On the other flow, looking at the export from the Mercosur countries, we've all been thinking about these countries as only being agri-food producers or primary resources producers. And it is, of course, true that when Europe now increases the quota for how much you can import tariff-free or at reduced tariffs from these countries, these import flows are going to go up. But, and this is a big but, it also means that you're going to allow for more economic modernization in the Latin American countries that are part of this deal, which is that they are most likely going to upgrade the type of agri-food they're going to export. We're going to see more investments coming into the sector. You're going to raise the economic value in it and the sophistication of the products coming in. So it's not just about sort of shipping frozen beef or frozen poultry or anything like that. It also allows for more economic modernizations in the Mercosur countries.
Yeah, I mean, people talk about the hidden costs here because European farmers would argue that the agro business is not as developed in the Mercosur countries, and they would be, of course, shipping goods at a lower standard with pesticides and deforestation being some of these hidden costs that I mentioned.
Yeah, and as we heard in the report as well, this has been the argument coming from the farmer lobbies and from European governments that are resisting this particular deal. But you have to look at it in a context. I mean, it's not as if a free trade agreement means that you're going to allow for exports that don't comply with the regulations in the receiving market. So Europe already has plenty of regulations, perhaps too much regulation already in terms of dealing with what type of food or what type of products that can actually be placed on the European market. In fact, when you look at what this agreement says on these issues, it basically means that Mercosur countries also will have to make a couple of changes domestically in order to not just change what type of production standards that apply for exports to Europe, but generally for the country. So if you want to make the argument that a trade agreement like this is going to lead to sort of a race to the bottom on product quality standards or on environmental rules that apply for production, I think you're making things up.
Dominic, quickly, why is this finally coming together now? Is it down to Donald Trump's flexing American power in Latin America and also his trade policies in the region?
I think President Trump or the US administration's general stance overall, and of course its tariffs, explain a lot why both Europe and Mercosur countries find that we need to do this now, and we need to make the political investments in order to get it done as well, because exactly as your report said, this is not a non-controversial deal in Europe, and those who are in favor of it, they will need to spend political capital in order to get it through. So I think it is Europe now confronted with higher tariffs in America, which means there is less export that is going to go from Europe to America. It basically needs to find new markets where they're going to sell more products.
Frederick, thank you so much. Frederick Eriksson, an economist and director of the European Centre for International Political Economy. $100 billion to revive Venezuela's energy industry. But is President Donald Trump's ambitious pitch investable? For now, the bosses of the biggest American oil companies appear unconvinced. They worry the arithmetics just don't work. And they've made no major commitments even after meetings at the White House. Major Western oil firms are seeking security and financial guarantees before they invest their money in the country. Trump says he is looking to rebuild Venezuela's oil industry and control the revenues to revive its economy and benefit the United States. And he's putting pressure on those companies to foot the bill. Laura Khan with this.
Less than a week after the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, US President Donald Trump summoned top oil executives to the White House with a business proposal. He wants American oil companies to revive Venezuela's crumbling energy infrastructure and foot the bill for it.
American companies will have the opportunity to rebuild Venezuela's rotting energy infrastructure and eventually increase oil production to levels never, ever seen before. When you add Venezuela and the United States together, we have 55% of the oil in the world. The plan is for them to spend at least $100 billion to rebuild the capacity and the infrastructure necessary.
Trump's proposal was met with skepticism by bosses of the biggest US oil firms who attended the meeting.
If we look at the legal and commercial constructs and frameworks in place today in Venezuela, today it's uninvestable.
Many oil companies have had a troubled relationship with Venezuela since crude oil was discovered in the territory more than 100 years ago. ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips exited the country after Maduro's predecessor, Hugo Chavez, moved to nationalize the oil industry in 2007. Chevron is the only major US oil company still operating in Venezuela. Trump has offered them security guarantees to return to the country.
You have total safety, total security. One of the reasons you couldn't go in is you had no guarantees, you had no security, but now you have total security.
Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves, but produces a fraction of what it used to. Aging infrastructure and international sanctions have crippled its production, from more than 3 million barrels a day a few decades ago to around 900,000 barrels a day. That's less than 1% of world oil consumption. The Trump administration says it's working to lift some sanctions on Caracas to stabilize the economy and facilitate the sale of Venezuela's oil.
We have to get them to invest, and then we have to get their money back as quickly as we can, and then we can divvy it all up between Venezuela, the United States, and them.
What's unclear is how that money will be split. For now, oil companies don't seem to be in a rush to invest in a country where the political situation remains unsettled. Laura Khan, Al Jazeera, for Counting the Cost.
Decades ago, access to Venezuela's vast oil reserves looked like a once-in-a-generation opportunity. So why are American companies reluctant now? Much of it comes down to profit and the price of oil. In the US, the world's biggest producer, of course, prices are now below $65 a barrel. President Donald Trump wants them even lower, reportedly as low as $50 a barrel, saying cheaper oil helps to rein inflation in. But research firm Wood Mackenzie says firms in Venezuela would need to make as much as $80 per barrel in order to break even. Thomas O'Donnell is an energy and geopolitical strategist, and he joins us now from Berlin. Thank you so much for joining us, Thomas. But what do you make of all this? I mean, do you think this is all a bit of a red herring?
Great to be here. Well, there's a lot of red herrings flying around here. Let me grab one piece of that. There's a reason to bring Venezuela online. One reason is if you want to recover Venezuela itself, the people of Venezuela, there's no other productive capacity. There's no other productive activity in the country. There wasn't much before Chavez either. It's all about oil. So there has to be some recovery there to rebuild the country, to get the electricity going, to get the food system going. And that's a big prerequisite also for the oil companies to come in. So it's consistent with what they need. Now, Venezuela can really be an oil powerhouse. I don't think there's any doubt about this. Whether the United States wants to develop or not, if Venezuela was a free country, they'd proceed with this. One of the biggest problems here is the kind of discussion that's taking place. People are looking at the oil majors, the super majors like Exxon. If you look at Venezuela, what I see is 3 different levels of investment possibilities. You have fields that are already running. PDVSA runs fields. They've doubled their production.
since the end of Corona. They took money, some money they were getting from the Chinese, and invested. And Delcy Rodriguez, the acting president, or actual president now, also runs PDVSA, and they have increased their production somewhat. Those fields can be significant, that are already running, can be significantly improved if you get foreign technology to come in. So Chevron, who's been there all along, they produce like 240,000 barrels a day. Their CEO says within a couple of years they could increase that by 50%. The second class of things is there's a lot of mature fields where the production was shut off, and PDVSA under Chavez and Maduro said they were depleted. They're not depleted, most of them. That's a sort of a story. There's a huge opportunity there, and that can be small and medium-sized firms. Then there's the big Faja, big fields, and that's what the super majors are talking about, big investments there. But that can be done at quite a low price. That was proven by old PDVSA around the years that Chavez first came into power. They proved they could develop that oil. Their goal was $20 a barrel back then.
Thomas, briefly, when you look at what the oil majors are talking about here as well, they want security guarantees on top of everything else. Now, those security guarantees, would they be forthcoming? How important are they? And would they tip the balance?
Okay, now it depends what they mean by security guarantees. Sometimes they're talking about money, backstop from the United States government. I think the U.S. government isn't too inclined to do that. The other security guarantee is, look at Venezuela. It's a highly armed country, very ideologized. So you've got two kinds of armed actors in Venezuela. One set of armed actors are actually with the state, but you have non-state actors, and then you've got guerrillas. Something has to be done about all those, and a transition that takes place with the agreement of the present government in some way is most likely that these people will stand down, gradually be replaced. If there's a forcible change, if the U.S. ever went directly in, a lot of these people would go to the jungle or whatever and engage in terrorism and so forth. So when they talk about security guarantees, they're talking about, I think, the American government taking care of this transition. So far, they're doing it in a way that might, it's more intelligent than the way they did it in Iraq. And so there's a possibility of that. Let me just say, big super major oil companies operate in all sorts of environments that are very dangerous, and they have security for their fields and for their people. As Trump pointed out, they're tough guys. So it's possible that this can be solved, but it's a delicate question of the political transition in Venezuela.
Donald Trump says that he wants to lower energy prices, and that would, of course, benefit the American consumer. But at the same time, he's also saying that would also lift profits for American oil companies. Surely that's a contradiction.
Yeah, I mean, look, American shale can make money at $50 a barrel probably. They've had oil price wars with the Saudis in the past and proved that a lot of them with technology can do these things. We're actually in the middle of shale 4.0 revolution taking place in technology. I think this is tenable. Now, if you bring Venezuela online in a big way over some years, yeah, there's going to be a lot of extra oil in the market, and it'll keep it low. I think the elephant in the room here is, Russia's been one of the 3 biggest producers of oil in the world, and the Americans, together with the Ukrainians, are in the process of stepwise taking them offline. If this continues, if Putin doesn't agree to peace in Ukraine, it's possible for the Americans to take Russian exports offline. And so I think that might be in the back of Washington's mind, or right in the front of their mind, why they want to get Venezuela online, because a couple years down the road, when the glut in the world market now is run down, there's a glut, he can do this now, take Russia offline. But in a few years, they'll need Venezuela if they go ahead with that.
Thomas O'Donnell there. Thank you so much. Thomas O'Donnell is an energy and geopolitical strategist.
Thank you. Thank you.
And President Donald Trump has Greenland too on his list. Trump says he wants to take over the Danish territory. Greenland is rich in rare earth elements which power almost everything from fighter jets, missiles to electric vehicles. His renewed interest in the island is widely seen as a way to loosen China's grip on the supply chains of those minerals. Most of the territory lies inside the Arctic Circle, where major powers are competing for strategic and commercial dominance. But despite its vast resources, extracting them would be hugely costly. Most of Greenland is covered in ice, so is its mineral wealth commercially viable? Rory Challens reports from the island itself.
For Joel Hansen, Greenland is a place of abundance and liberty. He's been fishing among the towering icebergs of Ilulissat in the west of the island for 14 years.
I love Greenland because when I'm fishing, we have a big freedom to work for ourselves.
Joel is half Inuit, half Danish, and he doesn't want Donald Trump changing him or anything else here.
I will not be American. I have seen Alaska and Inuits, how hard they're living. It's maybe better be Danish, I think.
So you don't think America treats native people well?
No. I'm terrified to be American.
But Greenland's abundance is a big part of why the US president says he wants this territory, whether its people like it or not. So this is how many Greenlanders feed themselves and earn a living, as they always have, fishing and hunting the icy coastal waters. But deep inland, there's a much greater source of wealth, and that's one of the things Donald Trump has his eyes on. And because the island is so remote and inhospitable, it's wealth that is largely untapped. Now, beneath Greenland, there are rich deposits of things like zinc, iron, uranium, and graphite. And some of these deposits are the much sought after rare earth elements. When processed, these have unique magnetic and electrochemical properties, and they're used in lots of modern tech like wind turbines, electric vehicles, smartphones, and importantly, missile systems and fighter jets. Now, because China controls most of the world's current supply of rare earth elements, Donald Trump sees Greenland's resources as vital to US security. Extracting them profitably, though, is another matter. Glaciers, the ice sheet, few roads. Greenland has only 2 operating mines for a reason.
The problem with resource extraction in Greenland is this. Greenland is a rich country in terms of natural resources. However, it is very expensive to extract it. So that means that even though that there are a lot of resources there are a lot of resources to be had, it may not be profitable to ever extract a large quantity of those resources.
To Joel, this is still a path to future independence, though.
We have a lot of minerals in Greenland, so we can be a nation if we want. We don't need money from Trump.
But the US president is yet to show he'll take no for an answer. And as global warming opens up the Arctic, the US and its rivals are competing to secure new shipping routes and new resources. Rory Challens for Counting the Cost, Ilulissat, Greenland.
Well, joining us from Oslo is Erdem Lamajapov, research fellow at the Fridtjof Nansen Institute. Erdem, now, there's a strategic argument here, isn't there, that Russia is competing for resources in the Arctic and is a threat, and it's to fill a gap between Greenland and the UK in terms of the Atlantic. But let's face it, if you look at Alaska, the Russian border is only at the narrowest point 3 miles, less than 3 miles away. There's that, and then you've got these critically important rare earths, all right, which are hugely difficult to get out of the ground given the tundra. So what does he really, why does he really want Greenland?
Yes, so the United States, I guess, has been abundantly clear that the reason why it considers Greenland as geostrategically important is because it's in the Arctic, but also because it's in the Western Hemisphere. So it's part of the American sphere of influence. Now, in terms of Russia and China, of course, there's been a lot of Russian and Chinese activities in the Bering Sea. So much closer to the United States already. And that's the main area where China and Russia have conducted military exercises, not near Greenland. The last time a Chinese icebreaker was by Greenland was in 2018.
Right. So the thing is then, how much of this is just posturing?
Well, it's about the United States sphere of influence, and I would assume that it's also about the domestic politics more than about international politics, because the United States won't get much else that it doesn't already have.
Yeah, and
in Greenland, there is a...
Yeah, and for decades, I mean, officials in Greenland have been trying to court direct investment, if you will, and, open up for business opportunities. So why the necessity to do it this way, to either require it to or take it by force?
Well, the issue is Greenland is rich, as it already been said, in different minerals. One of them is rare earth minerals, which are considered as critical minerals by most countries now, and the United States as well. And China controls most of the supply chain of critical minerals, including rare earth elements. Now, there are two deposits in Greenland, the Kvanefjell deposit and the Greenland deposits. Both of them are located in southern Greenland. And the Kvanefjell deposit is actually also a uranium deposit. In 2021, the Greenland passed a law that forbade mining of uranium because of the concerns that it would contaminate both water and the earth. The tailings, which are radioactive, would have to be disposed in a sustainable way, which is difficult to do. In addition, the deposit itself is one of the greatest deposits of rare earth elements. Its concentration is quite high. Now, there is also a deposit, the Greenland deposit, which is controlled by an American-backed Tabriz mining company, and that deposit is not radioactive. And production of rare earth elements is going ahead there.
So, Erdem, this begs the question, what about the economics of all this? We mentioned how cost-unfriendly it is to be mining for rare earths. Just how prohibitive is it?
Well, rare earth element mining in itself is a low-margin industry. That means that you won't have a lot of return on investment right away. And then when you make the rare earth carbonates, they have to be beneficiated elsewhere anyways, where you extract the rare earth oxides and pure rare earth metals in several stages of production after. And China controls most of the rare earth separation, so production of oxides. And it could be as well that the rare earth ore that is being mined in Greenland would end up in China for beneficiation anyways.
Erdem, thank you very much. Erdem Lamajapov, a research fellow at the Fridtjof Nansen Institute. And that is our show for this week. Get in touch with us on X. I'm at Richard TV. Do use the hashtag AJCTC when you do. Or drop us an email. countingthecost@aljazeera.net is our address. But there's more for you online at aljazeera.com/CTC. That'll take you straight to our page, which has individual reports, links, and entire episodes for you to catch up on. So that is it for this edition of Counting the Cost. I'm Rishad Salamat from the whole team. Thanks for joining us. The news on Al Jazeera is next.